Welcome to Linda's Corner. My name is Linda Bjork. Today we're going to be talking about mental wealth and using humor to overcome life's darkest moments. I am so excited to welcome special guest Jane Jenkins Herlong. She is an award-winning, best-selling author, speaker, radio humorist, and farm girl turned beauty pageant queen. She's here with us today to share some sweet tea wisdom and southern fried humor. Welcome, Jane. Thanks so much for joining with me today.
Oh, thank you, Linda. We need a lot of wisdom and humor these days, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, I could use a dose today, so I'm just so glad that you're here. Most people talk about mental health, but you use a different term, mental wealth. So can you explain a little bit more about that and what you mean by that?
I guess basically as I walk through life, I see a lot of emphasis on people taking care of everything from the neck down, which is good, but there's a whole missing element, and that would be the neck up. And I think that we have to learn how to handle ourselves in difficult situations. And Linda, think of a tube of toothpaste and think of the key at the bottom and the pressures of winding and winding up that tube. What comes out of the top is showing you what's in your heart, what's inside of you. And I'm all about learning and growing and being proud of what comes out because you can't stuff it back.
That's so true.
And the Bible tells us from out of the heart, the mouth speaks. So I think it's important that we know what's inside of our hearts, and that would be connected to our jawbone and how we communicate.
Right.
So I always think it's important if we just look at the total person and be proud of our actions, our thoughts, our words, because our thoughts so dictate what our actions will be and what we assume as being truth and not truth. And it's a journey. It really is.
Absolutely.
I think people that are mentally wealthy are those wise people that I love to listen to. And in my book, Rhinestones on My Flip-Flops, I have a whole chapter and I call it Women of Wisdom. And men need men of wisdom. So they need Mo's and we need wows. And so I love to learn from those folks because they're the library of how to have a longevity of life and be balanced. And I just love to sit and talk to them. And especially when you're having one of those days, you know, Linda, where you're down the dumps and you think, woe is me. Well, go visit somebody that might be shut in and just talk to them about their journey, their life. And you might learn something that you can take away. So always embrace mentally wealthy, balanced, good people that you can learn from.
Yes. So you are one of those women of wisdom that we're turning to today. So let's have some stories and some wisdom. How do you use humor to get through the rough times? Because a lot of people are going through rough times right now.
So true. And I think people are very hungry for levity and laughter. And it's, being that we're semi-confined, it's hard to see life experiences. And that's really what I write about. I love to take something that happened and flip it through my humor eyes and talk about it. But I'll tell you one of my very favorite stories, and it's very poignant along with being humorous. That a friend of mine in our Sunday school class, he said that he was in boot camp and he was scared to death he was going to fail. And so he just got on his knees. He said, oh, God, help me, please. I need a miracle. I need a sign. And all of a sudden he opened his eyes. He looked on his dog tags and it said, be positive. He went, this is an answer. So he changed. He completely changed. And a friend of his said, man, what's with you? I thought you were going home. He said, God sent me a message. He said, what? He said, look at my dog tags. Be positive. And the guy said, yeah, you want to see my dog tags? Oh, negative. So he thought his blood type was a sign, a divine signal. And that is a true story. So,
I think that is wonderful.
The point of it is, isn't that hilarious? I said, Nikki, you know, because the speakers, we love new stories. So I said, I'm taking that one. So I use that a lot because I think, like, you know, I had the privilege, Linda, of actually knowing Zig Ziglar. And when he was in our National Speakers Association, and He always said that whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're gonna be right either way.
So
You're gonna
true.
be right. So why not be an I can person? And why not be able to handle, this is another part of being mentally wealthy, handle the waves that try to knock us down, and think, okay, all right, I'll just reroute. I'll just go over here. I'll try over here.
Oh, I love
So
that.
people that really are confident in that they have a calling on their lives and a mission, they plow through, honey. They plow through. And I was raised on a farm. We did a lot of plowing.
Excellent. Do you have some farm stories for us?
Oh gosh, I got a gazillion farm stories. And my daddy didn't finish the 10th grade, but he was a smart man in that he loved to learn. And he taught me that be honest. He taught me about honesty and hard work and be a person who continues to learn. And daddy came in one time from work and he was laughing so hard because the folks on the farm that he worked with was always a source of humor. Not only were they funny, we had one guy we called Bomb Initials, and he's an old country boy. And for 20 years, he worked for us, Bomb Initials. And so Daddy, back then, they didn't have check writing machines. Daddy would go to the bank and get cash. So dangerous when you think about it. And put it in envelopes and put people's names. And it was during tomato season. And he was so busy that he forgot to go to the bank. And Bomb Initials came up and said, Mr. Benjamin, can you pay me? And Daddy said, well, I'd have to write you a personal check. He said, well, that would be fine. And Daddy said, I'm embarrassed to tell you, I never know properly how to spell your name. He said, oh, just make it out to C.W. Jones. Daddy said, C.W. Jones? Who's that? He said, me. He said, we've called you Bomb Initials for 20 years. He said, yes, sir. I thought it was kind of strange. First day here, you said, what do we want to call you by? I said, you could just call me by my initials. That is a true story. Yes. So
Wow, that's a
I
great
got
one.
a lot of them.
Oh, let's have another one. That was wonderful.
Yeah. It's just good old Southern humor. But we have an unusual situation because I'm from the Carolina Low Country, Johns Island, and we have a language that is actually being taught now at Harvard. It's a dying language, and it's Gullah, Gullah. And it is not particularly restricted to anybody's race, because if you have folks that work with you on the farm, you have to understand Gullah. You have to know how to speak it. So Daddy told me a story one time. He said that one of his gentlemen, he just loved these guys too. He was so good to folks that helped him because he realized they made him who he was. So one gentleman was so mad at Daddy. Daddy came in, he's chuckling. He said, boy, James put a cussing on me. Now, this is Gullah. I said, what, Daddy? He said, Mr. Benjamin, you make me so mad. When you shut your eye for the last time, I gonna tell them people to bury you 8 feet deep. That way, when Gabriel blow the horn, you're gonna be the last one up. So I hope you understood that, because I did it easier. But boy, Daddy was laughing because that was his way of saying, you made me furious.
Wow.
So, and then there was one other episode where the same gentleman was riding with Daddy to take our male cat to be neutered at the vet. And Daddy said the entire way to the vet that the gentleman that worked for Dad, I think it was James again, was stroking our male cat, knowing the cat was going to be changed that day. And he kept saying, great God, Kittany, I'm sure glad I ain't you. So I think those are rich. In my last book, actually, I added some of those stories because on top of everything else, it's a dying language. And again, at Harvard, they're teaching it. I'm Facebook friends with the gentleman that teaches Gullah. So I was telling him, thank you. It's a beautiful language. So that's kind of a little snippet of my roots, where I come from.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Good old Southern humor.
So your farm days were when you were younger. Do you still have anything to do with the farm now, or is that long in the past?
Oh, yeah. I married a peach farmer, And we live on a cattle and peach farm. And then I still have the farm down in Charleston, which I'm holding on to with the skin of my nails because of the development. But we still have agriculture out there, thank goodness. It's zoned agriculture because we have my a good friend of the family farms out there. He doesn't farm as extensively as Daddy, but he's got several acres of interesting things he's planting. So
Wow.
like saffron and potatoes and peas and stuff. So we're very grateful that he's helping that property stay in ag. Let me tell you.
Cool.
Yeah, farm life is great. It's just not a profession. It's just a way of life, out here where we are.
Right. And it's a beautiful way of life. I think when people are connected to the soil, they are more genuine. They're grounded is I think a word. They're connected. There's something that is different when you recognize that interaction that we have with our soil and where our food comes from. Sometimes people can get very disconnected.
I agree with you. I wrote an article for a magazine I write for called The Southern Edge. And I sent it to the editor and I said, I'm expounding on this, but read this. And what do you think? And it was what I learned living down a long dirt road. And one of the things was you're so connected with nature. You understand life and death because you have pets and farm animals that, eventually are not going to be with us anymore. You learn about being neighborly. You learn people just leave you vegetables and fruit just randomly, and you know who it is. And people just took care of each other. There's a huge sense of community. And I learned that some snakes are good and some are bad. I learned not to play with a hornet because they will sting you. People will sting you. So all those life lessons I put down, I also did into an analogy of the way life can be now. So I totally agree with that. It's a great way of life.
Absolutely. Do you have any suggestions for people who are feeling disconnected right now with this whole COVID? So many people feel disconnected, and that feeling of society and community is just really shaky and struggling.
I would suggest that you call a nursing home and say, I want a list of your shut-ins, and start sending them cards.
That's
Get
a great
busy.
idea.
That's what I have done. And when you can visit. I'll be going next week for the first time. I'm a singer too, and I'm partnering with a friend of mine, and we're doing a musical comedy program for some of the senior adults out there, and they're so excited about it, and I think I'm more excited than they are. But get outside of yourself. Another technique, go outside on a pretty day. A lot of our folks across the country have horrible problems right now with the snow. And I think people can just lie down somewhere and look up and realize that your issues are not nearly as big as this world is, and get it in perspective, and just do something for somebody else. And maybe do something unorthodox, that something you've not done. That, again, the most important thing to me, Linda, is to get your mind off of yourself and get out of your own pity party. And I know a lot of people, this has been a long haul. I got my shot yesterday.
Ooh.
I'm not even old enough to get it. But I knew you can go and you can go to the non-appointment clinic, and you can wait till everybody's over, and you can walk in and say, any leftover serum? And I got one.
Wow, good job. Way to be
So
proactive.
I was glad to do it. Yeah, I've done that twice, and the next time it worked. They actually had a couple of shots left over, and a lot of times they pitch it because it's not as viable, and so they have to get rid of it, or either they mix it in, but the preferable thing is to use the serum. So There's starting to be some light, but do something for somebody else. Call somebody that you haven't talked to. Man, they will appreciate it so much. You just start a project. Maybe you're passionate. Me as an author, I wrote another book and got a book deal. I was glad about that.
Wonderful.
But so that was So I just started writing. My next book will be coming out in about a year.
Awesome.
So you just got to kind of get outside of yourself.
I agree. And it's really, really easy when you're in the situation to just kind of look in. And it never feels very good when you're looking in all the time. It feels so much better and happier when we're looking out and making those connections and doing things. So that's awesome.
I read one time that they did a Harris poll, and they asked For the first time, they had 100%. They've never had 100%. And it was, how do you feel when you do something for someone else? And 100% of the people said, great, wonderful, better, fulfilled. It's all positive. That'll preach right there.
It works. It makes a difference.
Yeah, it truly does. And there are a lot of people, to be honest, I mean, they have had horrible things. They have lost parents. I've heard horror stories. I'm sure you have too. Like, you got to be kidding me. And then I have a friend. He's very funny, and he didn't mean this to be disrespectful, but he said if his mother gives him one more list of who's not with us anymore from our local funeral home, he's going to scream. I mean, it's like, gosh. But a lot of these folks were elderly, and it just sadly caught up with them. But there are a lot of people that aren't. So this virus does not have, it's no respecter of persons.
No, that's true. So, but we want to be positive. We want to be positive. Positivity makes all the difference. In fact, it helps our immune system. It helps us to be able to fight it better when we're happy and when we're doing good things. Do you have any more funny stories to share?
Yeah. Oh, I got tons of funny stories. Let me tell you about this one guy. I worked for an ag company one time. I was thinking about him. I guess that's why I was thinking about maybe telling it. But he was in the South. We call it a washfoot Southern Baptist. Have you ever heard of that?
No, tell me more.
I mean, completely straight. Called Washfoot Southern Baptist. And he and I had to travel together. Now, with a traveling companion that's a straight Baptist and an Episcopalian, it's going to be interesting. So we were riding along. His name was Joel. He even had a religious name. It's a biblical name. And so we were riding along. And he said, I got a confession to make. And I thought, good. I hope you're bad at something, He said, I like to gamble. I was thrilled. I said, well, that's okay, Joel, He said, no, I have a problem. The gambling was, you ready for this? We would go to McDonald's to the drive-thru and play their sticker game. That was his gambling. So I'd lick the things and we'd stick them on the thing. And if we got further down the interstate, we might get a free Coke or something at another McDonald's. That was gambling.
That was his version of gambling.
Well, I got naughty. I got naughty. Here we are down in South Georgia, which is just another country. Let me just tell you that. And I saw on the Holiday Inn Holidome, they don't exist anymore, female mud wrestling. I said, we going, Joel? He said, no. I said, come on, you're supposed to escort me everywhere. We're going to female mud wrestling. So we went, and he's scared to death somebody was going to see him at the Baptist church because he was a deacon. And he was in the back of the room, had his arms folded, and I was just all completely entertained by this one contestant. Her name was Amazing Grace. And they had on swimsuits and stuff. But they got in this big old pit of mud, which is made out of garbage bags with duct tape. That was very professionally done. And so here we are, and I'm watching this girl, and she is fighting for all her might. And the girl that she's fighting in that mud pit, she's healthy. You know what I'm saying? Healthy girl.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that little skinny girl pinned down that healthy girl and won $200, which goes to the fact that I've heard this expression is not the size of the dog in the fight, but the fight in the dog. I'm not calling them dogs now. I'm just saying that's what.
Right.
So Joel was all fascinated. Went up to the skinny girl and said, how'd you do that? She said, I got a trailer payment to make next week in my mobile home. And I said, well, that'll get you. That'll get you. So I left him. I mean, I thought, well, I've kind of had enough of this. Well, he was up in that mud pit going, get her, get her, get her. I mean, he was all over the next girls that were in that mud pit. And I thought, I don't know what I've done. I guess I've dethroned the deacon at the Baptist church in Worth County, Georgia. So the next morning we got in the car and I was real quiet. And finally he said, that was fun. I said, good. He said, I'm inspired. And I thought, what? And he said, I've gotten the title for my Sunday school lesson this Sunday. I said, what? He said, how to handle mud slinging with amazing grace. So there you go. I said, Joel, that works for me. So after that, we had fun. We got to know each other's differences. And there's a lesson in there. And that's what I like to do, Linda, when I talk to people. I like to tuck a life lesson in. And I'll say, you know what? At that point, that was a big icebreaker, and we appreciated each other's differences and enjoy other people that are different from you and learn from them. and try to find something fun, that you can enjoy together, or just conversation or whatever. Just respect people that are different. So that was my little takeaway on that one.
Oh, that's the most important takeaway I can think of. We have such a disparity in our country right now where people have such different ideas and are not very tolerant of people with ideas that are separate from their own. And that's dangerous and it isolates us even further. So if you can go mud wrestling and have it turn out to be research for a sermon, I think that's pretty creative.
I was just talking to our minister, and I said, "Did you get my email? I got a good sermon title for you. The 3 kinds of Jesus: virtual, hybrid, and in person. Which one are you?" Oh yeah, he wrote it down. He's gonna make a sermon out of it. He's very good at that. He's a very good speaker. But we have to have high principle thinking and not low functioning reacting. And I think we know that to be true over what we've seen, sadly, in our own state government and in the national government.
Absolutely.
We've got to be high principled thinking people. Hugely important.
Right.
And it's okay to agree to disagree.
Yes.
I mean, what's wrong with agreeing to disagree? But some people can't do it. You either have to be all in with them or not. It's either this or that. And that doesn't work.
No. It doesn't, because we can't convince other people to our way of thinking very often. And then it just ends up in a battle.
And we don't get it through being forceful and pushy and I'm right and you're wrong. That does not work. You've got to sit and listen to where people are coming from.
Absolutely.
You've got to understand their journey. True. And I call that mental wealth. That's the mental wealth part right there.
I agree. I like that. And I like that term. I think when we have good mental health, we're in a good spot from the neck up. It makes everything work out better from the head all the way to the toes.
And that's what I think it was Zig Ziglar that said we all need a checkup from the neck up.
I like that.
I do too. And there are things, and as long as you live and have challenges, you're going to see what you need to fix in that checkup. And that's a good thing. And just be open to be teachable and changeable.
Beautiful. So in your bio, you talked about your experience on the beauty pageant, the Miss America beauty pageant, and that was a bit of a change from what you'd been doing before. Do you have any stories to share from that at all?
I do. I was not a pageant girl. Like I mentioned, I was on this tomato farm, and I just happened to watch the pageant. And as a child, and I thought, that's everything I want to become, but I'm not. But the becoming is important. So, because when you dissect the system of the basis of competition, you've got communication skills, you've got physical fitness, you've got talent, and you've got a sense of style and how you present yourself. Well, that's your branding. So when you boil it all down, that's what makes people successful. They learn how to communicate. They take care of themselves. We would call that swimsuit in the world of Miss America. And then what is your talent? There's no talent that is too small to share. So I wanted all of that. I wanted to be able to share my talents. I wanted to develop my talents. I wanted to take care of myself. I wanted to be a good communicator. As I was saying, I think that the system embraces all of those areas that we can be successful in: communication skills, physical fitness, developing a talent, having your own sense of style and a branding statement. Well, hello, every successful person I know, they've mastered every single one of those. So I think that's something that is important and attracted me to the system. Well, I was an ugly little girl, but no teeth. Always wore my corduroy pants and my flannel shirt, penny loafers in my little shoes. I was just such a tomboy, and real short hair and all that. And so the high school girls came by to pick out the cute little girls to be in the beauty pageant, and I thought I'd get picked. Well, I got laughed at. Of course, they picked the diva next to me with the stick-out dress, and you had her teeth, ruby red little makeup thing, Avon, white tester tube. The Avon lady gave her, and her hair was all rolled up, and as we say in the South, jacked up. Jesus, I wanted to slap her, but she got picked, and I got determined. So I ended up. My brother said we needed a fishbowl for the pageant, and I had a fishbowl. And I sat there and I was just all mesmerized, Linda, watching those girls walk across the stage, pulling questions out of the fishbowl. And I just felt like the Lord spoke to my heart and said, "You're going to do that." And I thought, how? I have no team. We don't have money. But 17 years and 5 months later, I was on that stage at Miss America, and it was quite an honor to be there, meet all those wonderful people. It was such a fun thing.
Wow.
So it was just part of a dream I had that I learned in college how to sing. I was told I was dyslexic before that, and I wouldn't get into college, and I kept trying. I wore them out, and they let me in on academic probation, and Daddy didn't have the money. I got a grant, went to graduate school. I just think when we have roadblocks, we need to think, you know what, the best 4-letter word in the English language is next. Next. Just try to work around it. Try to find that sweet spot that you have and just keep pursuing. And if there's a detour, take it.
Right.
And it might be a better opportunity. So that's how I look at it.
I love that. So next, are you talking about just take the next step, just do the next thing? Don't worry about the end, just take that next step. Is that what next you mean?
It could be, and then it could be me right now calling someone that I think they might want me to speak at their event, and they say no, and I'll think, thank you for letting me ask you. You're not the right person for me. Next. Or the 23 rejections I get on books. Okay, they're not the right person. Let's try another one. Let's change up this way. Let's do that. And you can land on something fabulous. You just never know. Just don't stop trying and don't try stopping.
Wow, I like that. Okay.
And, you know, being rejected does not mean the end of the road. It means there could be another path.
Boy, that's important to know, because who hasn't been rejected? And if that is the end, we're all done.
Very, very true.
Wow, beautiful. Do you have any other stories you want to share?
Let me see. Probably if I were to leave folks with good advice, it would be that I think when we look at where we've been in the past, I guess it's a year now, 10 months, and life has changed as we know it. If you want to be wise and learn something, I think you can look at your life and make decisions of where do I want to go from here? Who do I want my circle of friends to be? And what's my new normal? Everybody said there is a new normal. Okay, but what is your new normal? Do you have the courage to step back from maybe what you were doing and try something different? Or have you been forced to do something different? Or why not try something different? So I think that if we just try to find some growth experience and opportunities, it will benefit all of us. Instead of saying, golly, this pandemic was horrible, and it has been. I'm not dare going to say it hasn't been. For a lot of people, it's been beyond horrible. They've lost loves of their lives and seen beautiful people disappear just in a matter of days. It's been terrible. But if you can look at the most of us who maybe haven't had that trauma, and again, reach out to people that have, get your mind off you, but look at your own life and say, what can I do that maybe I haven't thought of doing? Or how do I want my life to look now? Because life is short, right? But it's wide. It's wide. You have the ability to make all kinds of decisions. So if I were leaving, just to wrap up, I would say, think about all the wonderful things maybe that you have not thought of. Start thinking about that, developing new talents. It has opened doors for many people that have had doors shut in their face. So be that kind of person to be brave enough maybe to check into something. You never know until you try. So that's what I would probably say would be a good way to wrap it up. If anybody wants to laugh and enjoy the spoken word or the written word or hear any music, I'd love for you to go to janeherlong.com/gifts. And that way you can download some things or read one of my books. And if you like that, you can go to janeherlong.com/shop. And that's where you can actually buy some things. And just love to give people some humor, some hope, and so we can get through this together and be better. So thank you very much. I appreciate that.
And we all need that. So Jane, thank you so much for sharing your stories and your wisdom and your humor. So in closing, I'd like to share a quote by Frank Clark. He said, "I think the next best thing to solving a problem is finding some humor in it." Today, I invite you to find some humor in your day, and especially to look for humor in your problems. See you next time on Linda's Corner.